They say scent is the soul made tangible, the one truth a wolf cannot lie about. For 9 years, my mate told me I reeked of death, that touching me would poison him, that I was broken at the very core. I believed him. I bathed until my skin bled. I swallowed my shame like communion. I learned to exist in the spaces where no one had to smell me. Then the Alpha King arrived. One breath. That's all it took. One inhale, and his frozen eyes ignited with something that looked like starvation, like recognition, like coming home after centuries of wandering. You smell like life itself, he whispered against my neck, while my mate watched in horror. Turns out, I was never broken. I was just waiting for someone strong enough to see past the veil. But freedom has a price, and the cold Alpha King, he doesn't just want me. He wants to burn down everyone who ever made me feel worthless. Chapter 1. The Architecture of Invisibility. The Spring Blossom Festival had consumed 3 days of preparation, and I'd orchestrated every detail from the shadows. White lilies arranged to hide their wilting edges, wine bottles positioned to label out, candles distributed to cast flattering light on the pack's elite, while keeping the servants in comfortable darkness. I was a master of invisibility by necessity. Seren? Thorn's voice still triggered that Pavlovian response. Spine stiffening, breath shallowing, hands instinctively smoothing down my dress, as if perfection might protect me. 9 years hadn't dulled that reflex. I turned to find my husband approaching with his customary 3-foot buffer zone, his handsome face already arranged into that expression I knew so well. Disgust, wrapped in concern, revulsion dressed as patience. He'd perfected it over nearly a decade. The arrangements look acceptable, he said, which was the closest approximation of praise I'd receive. His amber eyes scanned the decorated courtyard with critical precision before his nose wrinkled. But you've been working too close to the food tables. I can smell you on everything. The shame tried to rise, that familiar burning in my chest that had lived there so long it felt like a vital organ. But I'd learned to swallow it down, compress it, store it somewhere it wouldn't show on my face. I'll have the kitchen staff rewash every serving dish, I offered quietly. See that you do. Thorn shifted upwind, as if my scent carried on the spring breeze like contamination. The Alpha King arrives within the hour. I need you presentable, but unobtrusive. Do you understand the distinction? Of course. Wear the grey dress, the one with the high collar that covers your mark. He paused, and something cruel flickered across his features. Or rather, the absence of one, and triple the scent blocker. I will not have you embarrassing me in front of the most powerful alpha in the Northern Territories. His words landed like familiar blows, precise, practiced, designed to bruise without leaving visible damage. This alliance could elevate my position considerably, Thorn continued, already looking past me toward his imagined future. Alpha King Calith Stormcrown doesn't grant audiences to minor pack alphas. This is my opportunity to prove Ashenvale's worth. I need absolute perfection today. You need me erased, I thought, but didn't say. Speaking truth had stopped being worth the consequences around year 3 of our marriage. Some lessons were learned in blood and tears, others in the slow erosion of self, until you couldn't remember what shape you'd been before the grinding began. I'll be perfect, I promised, meaning I'd be invisible. Thorn gave a curt nod and strode away without another word, already dismissing me from his thoughts. I watched him go, this male I'd been legally bound to at 19, back when I still believed in fated mates and destiny and all the pretty lies werewolf culture built its foundation on. The bond had never formed. Not truly. He'd refused to complete the mating bite on our wedding night, backing away from our ceremonial bed like I'd transformed into something monstrous before his eyes. "Something's fundamentally wrong with you," he'd said, his face contorted with genuine revulsion. "Your scent. It's like decay, like rot and withered flowers. I can't breathe near you, Seren. I can't. Goddess, I can't even think straight." I'd cried that first night, scrubbed my skin raw in scalding water while he slept in separate chambers, consulted healers who found nothing medically wrong, applied every scent blocker and perfume the pack's herbalist could provide. Nothing helped. Whatever made mates instinctively drawn to each other had catastrophically misfired in my case. Or maybe I was simply defective at a molecular level, broken in ways that couldn't be seen but could definitely be smelled. 9 years of marriage without a single touch. 9 years of sleeping in separate wings of our home. 9 years of watching Thorn flinch away from my proximity like I carried plague. I'd become an expert at not existing. The other pack members had learned to follow his lead. They didn't mock me openly. Thorn wouldn't tolerate that kind of public disrespect toward his wife. But they kept their distance, avoided standing too close, wrinkled their noses when they thought I wasn't looking. The broken Luna. They called me in whispers. They assumed I couldn't hear. The one even her own mate can't stand to touch. I made my way through the bustling courtyard toward my private chambers, keeping to the edges, moving through spaces between people. A ghost in grey, haunting the margins of her own life. My rooms were in the eastern wing, far from Thorn's suite, isolated from the pack's social centres. Perfect for someone whose presence was meant to be minimised. I locked the door and leaned against it, finally allowing my careful mask to crack. Flahor's reflection stared back from the full-length mirror, silver blonde hair that had once shone like moonlight, now dull from excessive washing. Grey eyes that used to sparkle now flat and carefully empty. A face that had learned not to show hope, or hurt, or anything that might invite further cruelty. When had I become this translucent thing? The girl I'd been at 19 seemed like a different person entirely. She'd believed love would find her, had dreamed of a mate who would see her soul before her body, who would cherish and protect and choose her every single day. The woman I'd become knew those were children's stories. Reality was arranged marriages and political alliances, and learning to survive in a home that felt like beautiful imprisonment. I stripped mechanically and stepped into the bath I'd prepared earlier, water hot enough to punish. The rough sponge scraped across my skin in ritualistic patterns I'd perfected over 9 years. Scrub until pink, then red, then nearly raw, as if I could wash away whatever fundamental wrongness lived in my pores. The scent blocker went on in thick layers, neck, wrists, behind my ears, anywhere pulse points might betray me. It smelled antiseptic and vaguely medicinal. Nothing like the soft florals or warm vanillas other she-wolves wore, but it masked me, and that was what mattered. I dressed in the grey dress Thorn had specified, high-necked, long-sleeved, the colour of morning fog. It made me look like I was already halfway to disappearing. Perfect. My silver blonde hair went into a severe knot at the nape of my neck. No softness, no femininity, nothing that might draw attention or suggest I wanted to be seen. The woman in the mirror looked like a ghost. I headed back toward the festival grounds, timing my route to avoid the main pathways where pack members would be gathering. The long way around. The servant corridors. The spaces designed for people who weren't meant to be noticed. When I finally emerged near the decorated courtyard, the sun had shifted into late afternoon. Golden light filtered through the spring blossoms, painting everything in warm tones that felt like mockery. Everything was beautiful, except me. I took my position near the refreshment tables, close enough to be available if Thorn needed me for appearances, far enough to avoid contaminating the actual celebration. And I waited. The Alpha King was coming, and my husband had spent weeks preparing for this moment. This was Thorn's chance to elevate his status, to prove Ashenvale Pack's value to the most powerful ruler in the Northern Territories. I was simply part of the set dressing, another carefully arranged piece of his perfect tableau, as long as I didn't ruin it by being too present, too visible, too smellable. Everything would be fine. I'd learned to be so good at not mattering. What I didn't know, what I couldn't possibly have known as I stood there in my grey dress, drowning in scent blocker, making myself small, was that in less than an hour, the Alpha King would arrive. He would take one breath, and my entire world would detonate. Chapter 2. The Scent of Life. The first sign was the birds. They stopped singing all at once, a silence so complete it felt like the world holding its breath. Then the wind shifted, carrying with it a pressure that made my wolf press close to my heart with something that felt like recognition. Every wolf in the courtyard felt it simultaneously. Conversations died mid-sentence. Laughter cut off abruptly. The air itself seemed to thicken with primal awareness that an apex predator had entered territory. Thorn straightened beside the welcome podium, his expression carefully arranged into confident deference. Around him, pack elders and high-ranking wolves positioned themselves according to protocol. Everyone wanted to be seen, to be noticed, to catch the eye of the legendary Alpha King. I made myself smaller and retreated 2 steps further into the shadow cast by the refreshment pavilion. Then Calith Stormcrown stepped from the forest path, and reality reorganized itself around his presence. He was devastating, not handsome in Thorn's polished, symmetrical way. Calith was compelling in the manner of natural disasters, beautiful and terrible, and impossible to look away from, even when every instinct screamed to run. Raven black hair fell to his shoulders, catching the late afternoon sunlight like oil on water. He stood easily, 6'4", broad-shouldered and leanly muscled in a way that suggested violence held on a very short leash. Battle scars marked his hands and forearms, raised white lines that told stories of survival. He wore simple clothing despite his status, black leather and dark fabric that allowed for movement. No crown, no ornamental weapons. He didn't need artificial symbols of power. Power radiated from him like heat from fire. But it was his face that arrested me. Sharp cheekbones, strong jaw, sensual mouth that looked like it had forgotten how to smile, and his eyes, earth tone eyes that were completely, utterly empty. Not cruel, not cold, just absent, like staring into a frozen lake that had been dead so long it couldn't remember ever holding fish or movement or life. Beautiful and terrible in their emptiness. Every wolf in the courtyard dropped into instinctive submission. Heads bowed, eyes lowered, bodies unconsciously making themselves smaller in the presence of an alpha who predated most of their bloodlines. I sank into a deep curtsy, keeping my head down, breathing as shallowly as possible. Being invisible meant being forgotten. Being forgotten meant being safe. Thorn's voice rang out with practiced enthusiasm. Your Majesty, Ashenvale Pack is honoured beyond measure by your presence. Please allow me to introduce our pack elders. He stopped, mid-sentence. The silence stretched like pulled taffy, tension building with each passing heartbeat. I didn't understand why everyone had gone so quiet until I felt the weight of the Alpha King's stare fall on me like a physical touch. My wolf whimpered, not in fear, but in recognition so profound it felt like remembering something from before birth, from before existence, from some fundamental place where souls knew each other before bodies gave them shape. Slowly, against every instinct that screamed to stay hidden, I lifted my eyes. Calith Stormcrown stood 15 feet away, and he was staring at me with an intensity that bordered on violence. Those empty earth-tone eyes had ignited, blazing silver bright, like lightning trapped in frozen water. His entire body had gone rigid, every muscle locked with predatory focus. His hands clenched into fists at his sides, hard enough that I could see his knuckles go white even at this distance. His nostrils flared as he drew in a deep, deliberate breath. Then his expression cracked. Pain and wonder and starvation flashed across his face. Raw emotions I couldn't name because I'd never seen them directed at me before. His chest heaved like he'd been running for miles. A low sound rumbled from his throat. Not quite a growl, not quite a groan. Something desperate and hungry that made heat pool low in my belly despite my confusion. Who is that? His voice came out rough and harsh, like he'd forgotten how to form words and had to relearn the process. The question hung in the air like smoke. Thorn followed the Alpha King's line of sight, and I watched my husband's face drain of all colour in real time. His amber eyes widened with something that looked like horror. That's, Your Majesty, that's merely my wife. The word merely carried weight, dismissal, a desperate attempt to minimize. Luna Seren, she was just leaving. Your wife. Calith repeated each word slowly, like he was testing how they tasted. His blazing silver eyes never left mine. Your mate? A political arrangement, Your Majesty. Thorn's voice had pitched higher with poorly concealed panic. Not a fated bond, barely even a proper marriage, if I'm being honest. She has a condition, an unfortunate scent issue that makes... Bring her here. The command cut through Thorn's explanation like a blade through silk. Now. It wasn't a request. It wasn't even really an order. It was inevitability spoken aloud. My heart slammed against my ribs hard enough to bruise. Every survival instinct I'd honed over 9 years screamed at me to run, to hide, to make myself so small I ceased to exist entirely. But I couldn't move, couldn't look away from those blazing eyes that saw me, truly saw me, for the first time in 9 years. Thorn's jaw clenched hard enough to crack teeth. A muscle jumped in his cheek. Rage and fear warred across his features. But he couldn't refuse a direct command from the Alpha King, not without consequences that would destroy everything he'd built. Seren. My name in his mouth sounded like broken glass. His Majesty wishes to meet you. My legs moved on instinct, carrying me forward even as my mind catalogued all the ways this could shatter me. 9 years of learning to be invisible, of perfecting the art of not mattering, obliterated in seconds. I crossed the courtyard with careful steps, hyper-aware of every eye watching me, every whisper starting, every shocked face tracking my movement. The broken Luna, approaching the Alpha King. What could he possibly want with her? I stopped at what I hoped was a respectful distance and dropped into another curtsy, keeping my eyes lowered. My voice came out barely above a whisper. Your Majesty. Look at me. The command was softer than before, but no less absolute. A gentle order from someone who'd never needed to raise his voice to be obeyed. I raised my eyes slowly, and the full force of his attention nearly drove me to my knees. His eyes were blazing now, fully ignited with something fierce and consuming and almost frightening in its intensity. Not empty anymore, burning with emotions I couldn't name, because no one had ever looked at me like this before. Like I mattered, like I was precious, like I was the answer to a question he'd been asking for centuries. What is your name? His voice had gentled, but lost none of its authority. Seren Ashenvale, Your Majesty. Seren. He spoke my name like a taste of sweet wine, like a new adventure, like mentioning something impossibly perfect after centuries of wrong words. Seren, he repeated, softer this time, and I watched something in him crack wide open. Then impossibly he moved closer. The crowd's murmur rose, shocked whispers, rippling outward in waves. What he was doing violated a dozen social conventions. Alphas didn't approach claimed Omegas so directly, especially not the Alpha King, especially not in public. But Calith crossed the distance between us with deliberate intention, each step measured and purposeful, until he stood directly before me, close enough that I could see the silver flecks in his eyes, close enough that his scent hit me full force, winter frost and ancient cedar, and something wildly, primitively masculine that made my wolf keen with recognition, close enough to touch. Then he did something that made time stop, and the entire world narrow to the space between us. He leaned in slowly, giving me time to pull away, to object, to refuse, and inhaled deeply at the curve of my neck, where Thorn had refused to place his mark 9 years ago. The gasp that went through the assembled crowd was audible, shocked and scandalized in equal measure. Somewhere distant, I heard Thorn make a strangled sound of protest, but Calith ignored everything. The crowd, the protocol, the fact that I was supposedly another male's wife. He breathed in my scent like a drowning man, finally breaking the surface after being underwater for too long. His entire body shuddered. A tremor ran through him, starting at his shoulders and traveling down his spine. His hands, which had been clenched at his sides, slowly rose to hover near my waist, not touching, but so close I could feel the heat of them through my dress. Impossible, he whispered against my skin, and I felt the word vibrate through my bones like struck crystal. You smell like spring rain, like night blooming jasmine, like life itself. I couldn't breathe, couldn't process, couldn't reconcile 9 years of being told I reeked of death and decay with this moment. The most powerful alpha in existence, trembling as he scented me like I was something holy. Your Majesty, I really must protest. Thorn's voice cracked through whatever spell had woven around us. Calith's head snapped toward my husband with predatory precision. The look in his eyes made Thorn take an involuntary step backward. Be silent. 2 words, spoken in a tone so laden with alpha dominance that every wolf in the courtyard, from the youngest pup to the eldest elder, dropped to their knees in involuntary submission. Thorn hit the ground hard, his head bowing under the weight of power that predated civilization itself. Calith's attention returned to me, and those gleaming eyes gentled impossibly. His hand rose slowly, telegraphing his intention, giving me every opportunity to refuse. When I didn't pull away, when I stood frozen in shock and confusion, and something that might have been hope, he cupped my face with devastating gentleness. Battle-scarred fingers, rough palms, touch so careful it made my chest physically ache. No one had touched me with kindness in 9 years. How long? His voice was soft now, but I could hear the rage beneath it, molten and barely contained. How long has he kept you? 9 years, Your Majesty. My voice came out broken. Something in him shattered. I watched it happen in real time. Rage and anguish warred across his features. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone with reverence. 9 years, he repeated, each word weighted with centuries of understanding pain. 9 years you've carried this sacred gift, and he's been too blind, too shallow, too fundamentally unworthy to perceive it. Gift? The word escaped before I could stop it. Your Majesty, I don't understand. My scent, everyone says it's repulsive. Something's wrong with me. Nothing is wrong with you. He said it with such absolute certainty that it hit me like a physical blow. You smell of death to those unworthy of perceiving what lies beneath. But to your true mate. His voice dropped to intimate roughness that sent shivers down my spine. To your true mate, you smell of eternal spring, of sacrifice so profound it borders on divine. My breath caught. I don't. You absorbed your twin sister's death essence in the womb, didn't you? His earth tone eyes held mine with gentle understanding. Before either of you were born, she was dying, and you instinctively filtered her death through your own soul to give her a few precious moments of life. The world tilted sideways. No one knew that. My mother had told me once, years ago, that I'd had a twin who died at birth, but she'd never explained the circumstances, had never told me that somehow, impossibly, I tried to save her. How could you possibly know that? My voice was barely a whisper, because I can smell her on you. His thumb caught a tear I hadn't realized had fallen. Your sister, the one who breathes because you chose to let her death pass through you instead of into her. That's what the mourning veil is, Seren. Proof of the most selfless act a soul can perform. Mourning veil? I repeated, trying to understand. You're a soul vessel, Calith explained, his voice reverent. 1 in 1,000,000 births, maybe 1 in 10 million. When a twin dies in the womb, sometimes, very rarely, the surviving twin will absorb the death essence to try to give their sibling more time. It marks them, creates a scent veil that smells like decay, and endings to anyone whose soul isn't strong enough to perceive the life underneath. Understanding bloomed slowly, painful and beautiful at once. That's why Thorn, why everyone. They can only smell the death you filtered. They're not powerful enough, not soul deep enough, to perceive the eternal spring underneath. His eyes blazed with intensity. But your true fated mate, they would smell what you really are, life itself, rebirth made flesh. Why can you smell it? The question burst from me. If it requires a fated mate, then... I stopped, realizing what I was implying. Calith's expression turned achingly vulnerable. This ancient, powerful male suddenly looking as lost as I felt. Because I lost my twin brother in battle 200 years ago, I absorbed his death too, carried it until it froze me from the inside out. His hand trembled slightly against my face. I've been dead for 2 centuries, Seren, walking and breathing, but not truly alive, until you caught my scent, I finished, understanding cascading through me. Until you. He said it like a devotion, like a confession, like the answer to a question that had been killing him slowly for lifetimes. Only another soul vessel can truly perceive one. Only someone who's walked between life and death can recognize the same sacrifice. His forehead dropped to rest against mine. You were never broken, Seren. You've been waiting, and I've been frozen, until this perfect, impossible moment. Tears streamed down my face. 9 years of shame and self-loathing crumbling under the weight of being truly seen for the first time. I thought something was fundamentally wrong with me, I whispered. The only thing wrong was everyone else being too weak to see your truth. His words were fierce. You are perfect, Seren, sacred, and I will spend the rest of my extremely long life making sure you never doubt that again. This is absolutely absurd. Thorn's voice shattered the intimate moment, like thrown stones through glass windows. He'd found his courage again, or maybe just his desperation. Your Majesty, with all due respect, she is my wife, bound to me legally and ceremonially. Whatever you think you smell doesn't change the fact that she belongs to... Show me your bond mark. Calith's command cut through Thorn's protest with surgical precision. His eyes never left mine. Show me where you claimed her. My hand instinctively rose to my left shoulder, where the mating mark should have been, where Thorn should have bitten me on our wedding night 9 years ago. There was only smooth, unmarked skin. Calith's jaw clenched with rage so intense, I could feel the heat of it radiating from his body. When he spoke, his voice was deadly quiet, the kind of quiet that preceded violence. You bound her with ceremony, but refused the sacred bite. Each word dropped like stones into still water. You kept her in limbo for 9 years, unable to leave because of legal bonds, unable to find her true mate because she was technically claimed, but not truly yours because you refused to complete the bond. I had my reasons, Thorn started. You imprisoned her. Calith's dominance crashed over the courtyard like a tidal wave. That is not a marriage, Thorn Blackmore. That is not a bond. That is cruelty dressed in legal language. I have rights. Thorn's voice pitched higher with barely controlled panic. Legal rights to... You have nothing. The Alpha King's voice dropped to a lethal purr that was somehow more terrifying than shouting. By the ancient laws that predate your pack's existence by millennia, an incomplete bond can be challenged by a true, fated mate. His silver eyes blazed. I am invoking that right. Here. Now. Tonight. Horror and hope warred in my chest. Hope winning by the smallest margin. Your Majesty, I started, my voice trembling. You don't have to do this. I'm not worth... Seren. The way he said my name stopped me mid-sentence. His thumb pressed gently against my lips, silencing me with infinite tenderness. If you finish that sentence, if you dare diminish yourself one more time in my presence, I will burn this entire territory to ash out of pure spite. There was no anger in his voice, just absolute, unwavering certainty. "You are worth everything," he continued, his eyes holding mine with intensity that stole my breath. "I have been dead for 200 years, walking through a frozen wasteland, feeling nothing, caring about nothing. And your scent brought me back to life in seconds." His hand cupped my face with devastating gentleness. "You are mine, Seren Ashenvale. You were always meant to be mine. And I will burn down anyone and anything that tries to keep you from me." The promise in his voice made me believe in fate again, made me believe in fated mates and destiny, and all the beautiful lies I'd stopped letting myself dream about. Made me believe, for the first time in 9 years, that maybe I deserved to be loved. "The challenge will take place at moonrise," Calith announced, his voice carrying across the courtyard with absolute authority. "Traditional rules, to the yield or death." Thorn had gone sheet white. "Your Majesty, surely we can negotiate." "There is nothing to negotiate." Calith's eyes flashed silver warning. "You had 9 years to treat her with the honor she deserved. You chose cruelty instead. Now you'll face the consequences." He turned back to me, and his expression softened impossibly. "Will you wait for me, Seren? Will you give me the chance to fight for you?" As if there was any other answer I could possibly give. "Yes," I whispered. "I'll wait." His smile was small and fierce and utterly beautiful. The first real smile I'd seen from him. "Then it's already done. You're already mine. This is just formality." And looking into his eyes, feeling the truth of his words resonating in my bones, I believed him. Chapter 3. The Weight of Waiting. They took me to private chambers to wait for the challenge. Guest rooms in Ashenvale's main house that had been hastily prepared for my use. "For the Alpha King's mate," I heard one of the servants whisper as they showed me inside. The words felt surreal, impossible. 4 hours ago, I'd been the broken Luna, arranging flowers and trying not to contaminate the food. Now I was supposedly the fated mate of the most powerful Alpha in the Northern Territories, and my husband was preparing to fight for the right to keep me. Except, he didn't want to keep me. He just didn't want to be humiliated by losing me. The distinction mattered. I paced the elegant room, my grey dress swishing against my legs, my mind racing through everything that had happened. Calith's face when he'd caught my scent, the way he'd trembled while inhaling at my neck, the absolute certainty in his voice when he'd called me sacred. Soul vessel, he'd called me. A 1 in a million birth that marked me with my twin's death. My twin. I'd never known her name. Mother had been too grief-stricken to speak about it, and I'd learned not to ask questions that made her cry. But apparently, I'd tried to save her before either of us had taken our first breath. And that sacrifice had marked me in ways I'd never understood. Until today. A knock on the door interrupted my spiraling thoughts. "Come in," I called, expecting a servant. Instead, 3 women entered, all around my age, all wearing the practical leather and fighting leathers of pack warriors. The one in front had striking red hair and sharp green eyes that assessed me with interest, rather than the usual pity or disgust I was accustomed to. "Luna Seren," she said, inclining her head respectfully. "I'm Mira, second in command of the Alpha King's Royal Guard. These are Kestrel and Sage." She gestured to her companions, one with dark skin and warrior braids, the other pale and wolf-lean. "His Majesty sent us to ensure your safety during the challenge. My safety? I repeated, confused. Surely I'm safe here in my own pack. With respect, Luna, you're no longer part of Ashenvale Pack in any way that matters. Mira's tone was firm, but not unkind. The moment the Alpha King claimed you as his fated mate, your allegiance transferred. There are pack members here who might see you as a valuable hostage. His Majesty wants to ensure no one gets stupid ideas. The reality of what was happening crashed over me with fresh weight. This wasn't just a challenge for my hand. This was political, territorial, a shift in power dynamics that would ripple through the Northern Territories. I didn't mean for any of this, I said quietly. Kestrel, the dark-skinned warrior, laughed, not mockingly, but with genuine warmth. None of us mean for fate to find us, Luna. But it found you anyway. And from what I hear, you gave our king something we thought he'd never have again. What's that? A reason to feel, Sage answered, her pale eyes kind. He's been frozen for 2 centuries, dead inside. We've served him loyally, but we've watched him suffer in that cold emptiness. She smiled. Then he catches your scent and suddenly he's alive again, angry and possessive and feeling everything. That's a gift, Luna. I sank onto the edge of the bed, overwhelmed. I don't know how to be what he needs. You already are, Mira said simply. You're his mate. That's all that matters. Another knock sounded, sharper, more insistent. Mira's hand went to the blade at her hip instantly, her entire demeanor shifting from friendly to lethal in a heartbeat. Stay behind us, Luna. But the door opened before she could reach it, and a woman I didn't recognize swept into the room. She was stunning, tall and voluptuous with honey blonde hair and amber eyes that immediately locked onto me with undisguised hostility. So, you're the broken little Omega, who's somehow convinced the Alpha King you're special, she said, her voice dripping with disdain. Mira stepped between us immediately. Lady Cassia, you have no business here. I have every right to meet the female who's disrupted everything, Cassia shot back. Her amber eyes raked over me with contempt. Look at you, mousy, plain, covered in enough scent blocker to mask a battalion. And somehow, you've bewitched him? Lady Cassia has been pursuing the Alpha King's attention for decades, Sage murmured near my ear. She's not taking this well. Bewitched him? I found my voice, surprising myself. I didn't even know he existed until today. Exactly. Cassia moved closer, and I caught her scent. Artificially sweet, cloying perfume designed to attract. You're nobody. You have nothing to offer an Alpha King. No political connections, no powerful bloodline. You couldn't even keep your own mate interested. Her smile was cruel. What makes you think you can hold the most powerful male in the territories? The words hit old wounds with practiced precision. For a moment, I was back in my chambers with Thorn, listening to him list all the ways I was insufficient. Then I remembered Calith's face when he'd scented me, the way he'd trembled, the absolute certainty in his voice when he'd called me sacred. I don't need to hold him, I said quietly, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. He's already chosen me. Cassia's face twisted with rage. You little... That's enough. Mira's command cracked through the room like a whip. Leave, Lady Cassia. Now, before I have you removed. The Alpha King will tire of you, Cassia hissed at me, ignoring Mira's warning. Whatever novelty you represent will fade, and he'll remember what he actually needs. A real partner. Someone worthy. If you speak to my mate with that tone one more time, a male voice cut through the room like a blade through silk, I will personally ensure you regret drawing breath. Every head snapped toward the doorway. Kayleith stood there, his tall frame filling the entrance, his earth-tone eyes blazing with barely contained rage. He'd changed from his travel clothes into fighting leathers, black and fitted, designed for movement. His hands were wrapped for combat. He looked utterly lethal. Your Majesty. Cassia's entire demeanor transformed instantly, from hostile to seductive in a heartbeat. I was just introducing myself to get out. 2 words, spoken in that lethal quiet that was somehow more terrifying than shouting. Cassia fled. The 3 warriors followed, giving Kayleith respectful space as they exited and closed the door behind them, leaving us alone. The silence stretched, thick with tension. Did she hurt you? Kayleith asked, his eyes scanning me like he was checking for injuries. Just words, I assured him. I'm fine. You're trembling. I looked down and realized he was right. My hands were shaking. Kayleith crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled me against his chest with careful strength, like I was precious and might break. His scent surrounded me, winter frost and cedar, and something in me that had been coiled tight for 9 years finally began to loosen. I'm sorry, he murmured into my hair. Cassia has been persistent in her pursuit. I've made my disinterest clear for decades, but she doesn't accept rejection well. She's beautiful, I heard myself say, and confident, everything I'm not. Kayleith pulled back just enough to cup my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. She's desperate and cruel, and utterly wrong for me in every conceivable way. You? His thumb brushed across my cheekbone. You're perfect. Stop comparing yourself to females who don't matter. 9 years of being told I'm insufficient doesn't disappear in an afternoon, I admitted quietly. I know. His expression gentled. But I have centuries to prove Thorn wrong about you. And I'm extremely patient when I want something. The challenge, I said, reality crashing back. It's almost moonrise. Are you afraid? He asked, searching my face. Yes, I admitted, but not that you'll lose. Then what? That this is temporary, that I'll wake up and this will have been some beautiful dream. The confession escaped before I could stop it. I've spent 9 years believing I was fundamentally unlovable. You can't expect me to just stop believing that because you say otherwise. Kayleith's eyes blazed with fierce determination. Then I'll prove it. Every single day for the rest of our extremely long lives, I'll prove that you are loved, wanted, chosen. He leaned his forehead against mine. You're mine, Seren, and I protect what's mine with a ferocity that terrifies other alphas. You'll learn that soon enough. What if? No. He cut off my spiraling doubts with a gentle kiss to my forehead. No what-ifs, no self-doubt, not tonight. His earth-tone eyes held mine. Tonight, you watch me destroy the male who made you feel worthless. Then you come home with me. And tomorrow, we start building our life together. He made it sound so simple, so inevitable. Maybe it was. I should go, he said reluctantly. The challenge starts soon. But Seren? Yes? No matter what happens down there, no matter what Thorn says or tries to make you believe, remember this. You smell like eternal spring to me, like life itself. And I have been dead for 200 years, waiting for you. Then he kissed me, not gently, not carefully, but with desperate hunger that spoke of centuries of loneliness ending in this moment. His lips claimed mine with possessive intensity, his hands cupping my face like I was precious beyond measure. "That's a promise," he growled. "When I win, and I will win, I'm coming back here, and I'm taking you home. Understood?" "Understood," I whispered. He smiled, fierce and beautiful, and then he was gone, leaving me alone with the taste of him on my lips and hope blooming dangerously in my chest. The challenge was about to begin, and my entire future hung in the balance. Chapter 4. Blood and Dominance. The challenge circle had been drawn in salt and ash under moonlight, ancient ritual unchanged for millennia, predating written history, carved into the collective unconscious of every werewolf bloodline. I stood at the circle's edge, with Mira, Kestrel, and Sage flanking me protectively. The entire Ashenvale pack had gathered to witness, their faces illuminated by torchlight, expressions ranging from shocked fascination to poorly concealed schadenfreude. The broken Luna's husband, fighting the Alpha King over her. I heard someone whisper. Who would have thought she'd be worth bloodshed? The words should have hurt. A day ago, they would have. But something had shifted inside me. Calith's absolute certainty had planted a seed of belief that was starting to take root. Maybe I was worth fighting for. Thorn entered the circle. From the east, wearing fighting leathers and an expression of grim determination. He looked confident, probably banking on his youth and agility against an opponent who, despite his power, was technically millennia old. Foolish. Calith entered from the west, and the air itself seemed to bend around him. He moved like violence given form, every step measured, every muscle coiled with predatory readiness. His earth-tone eyes were cold and empty again, all the warmth I'd seen earlier, locked away behind battle focus. This was Calith Stormcrown, the Alpha King, the immortal warrior, the male who'd survived 3 centuries of battles that had killed lesser alphas. Thorn didn't stand a chance. "The challenge is called," announced Elder Rowan, Ashenvale's oldest pack member. His voice carried across the assembled crowd. Alpha Thorn Blackmore contests Alpha King Calith Stormcrown's claim on Luna Seren Ashenvale, citing legal marriage bonds. The Alpha King contests on grounds of true fated mates and incomplete bonding. The challenge will proceed to yield, or death. My breath caught. Death. This could actually end in death. "I don't want to kill you, Blackmore," Caliph said, his voice carrying across the circle. "Yield now. Walk away. Live." Thorn's face flushed with humiliation and rage. "You come into my territory and try to steal my wife. She was never yours." Calith's interruption was soft, but absolute. "You know it. She knows it. Everyone here knows it. You kept her trapped out of pride, not love. So I'll ask once more. Yield." "Never." "Then prepare to bleed." The fight started in an explosion of movement. Thorn shifted partially, claws extending, fangs dropping, eyes flashing gold with his wolf's presence. He was fast. I'd give him that. He lunged with the confidence of a male who trained extensively. Calith didn't shift at all. He simply moved. One moment, he was standing still. The next, he was inside Thorn's guard, his fist connecting with my husband's ribs, with a sickening crack. Thorn went flying backward, hitting the salt circle's edge hard enough to leave an impression in the dirt. "You relied too much on your wolf," Calith observed, circling with predatory grace. "You've never learned to fight with just your human form. Weakness." Thorn snarled and launched himself forward again, this time going for Calith's throat. The Alpha King caught him mid-air by the throat and slammed him into the ground hard enough to create a small crater. "You're telegraphing every move," Calith continued, his voice almost conversational despite the violence. "Another weakness." Thorn rolled away and came up swinging, managing to land a glancing blow across Calith's jaw. Blood welled. First blood to Thorn. The crowd gasped. Calith's head snapped back from the impact. For a moment, he was utterly still. Then he smiled. Cold and terrifying. "Finally," he murmured, "a little fight." What happened next was brutal poetry. Calith stopped holding back, and the fight became a systematic dismantling of everything Thorn thought he knew about combat. The Alpha King moved like water, fluid and inevitable, flowing around attacks and striking with surgical precision at joints and pressure points and vulnerable spots that left Thorn gasping. "This is for 9 years of emotional abuse," Calith growled, landing a brutal combination that sent Thorn reeling, "for making her believe she was broken." Another hit, this one cracking ribs. "This is for refusing her mating bite." Calith's fist connected with Thorn's jaw, snapping his head to the side, for keeping her trapped in a mockery of a marriage. Thorn tried to retreat, but there was nowhere to go inside the circle. "And this," Calith's voice dropped to a lethal purr as he caught Thorn by the throat and lifted him off the ground, "is for making my mate cry." He slammed Thorn down with enough force to knock the breath from his lungs. Thorn lay in the dirt, bleeding and broken, his chest heaving with laboured breaths. "Yield," Calith commanded, standing over him with absolute dominance. For a long moment, Thorn said nothing. Pride warred with survival on his face. Then finally, "I yield." The words came out broken, humiliated. Calith released him immediately and stepped back. "By ancient law and right of combat, I claim Seren Ashenvale as my true mate. Any who contest this claim may face me next." Silence greeted his challenge. No one was that stupid. Calith's eyes found mine across the circle, and the coldness melted instantly. His expression softened with such tenderness, it made my chest ache. He crossed to where I stood and dropped to one knee before me. This ancient, powerful king kneeling in front of the entire assembled pack. "Seren Ashenvale," he said, his voice carrying across the clearing. "I am Calith Stormcrown, and I have been walking through a frozen wasteland for 200 years. You are the spring thaw I thought I'd never feel again." His earth-tone eyes blazed with intensity. "Will you accept my bonding mark? Will you stand as my queen and my mate?" Every eye was on me, the entire pack waiting for my answer. But I only saw him, this male who'd seen beauty in what everyone else found repulsive, who'd trembled while breathing in my scent, who'd fought for the right to claim me with a ferocity that left no room for doubt. "Yes," I whispered. Then louder, "Yes, I'll be yours." The smile that broke across his face was radiant, pure joy that transformed his features from coldly beautiful to devastatingly handsome. He rose and pulled me against him with aching tenderness, his lips finding mine in a kiss that tasted like promise and possession and coming home after being lost for too long. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. "I'm going to mark you now," he murmured, loud enough for only me to hear. "It will hurt for a moment, then transform into pleasure. But once it's done, you're mine in every way that matters. No one will ever be able to separate us. Do you understand? Yes? Do you consent? Yes, I repeated, tilting my head to bare my throat. Mark me. Make me yours. Calith's eyes blazed silver bright. His hands cupped my face with devastating gentleness, even as his canines lengthened in preparation. Then he struck. His teeth sank into the juncture of my neck and shoulder. That sacred space where bonds were forged and mates were claimed for eternity. White-hot pain exploded through me for a heartbeat, so intense, I gasped. Then it transformed. Pleasure unlike anything I'd ever experienced flooded my system, radiating out from the bite-in waves that made my knees buckle. Calith held me up effortlessly, his arm banding around my waist, as he sealed the mark with his tongue. The mate bond snapped into place between us, like lightning forging new paths through the sky. Suddenly I could feel him, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, his presence in my mind like a constant warmth, his emotions bleeding into mine. Centuries of loneliness, desperate relief, possessive devotion so profound it bordered on obsession, his soul reaching for mine with the hunger of something that had been starving. Mine. His wolf snarled in my mind, the first time I'd heard it. Our mate. Finally. Ours. Yours. My own wolf responded with joy that felt like breaking through ice into sunlight. Always yours. When Calith finally pulled back, his lips were stained with my blood. His eyes blazed pure silver, no earth tone left, just molten silver fire. Mine, he growled, the word rumbling from his chest with primal satisfaction. My queen, my mate, my salvation. Yours, I agreed breathlessly, feeling the truth of it resonating through every cell in my body. The bond hummed between us, golden and unbreakable, tying us together in ways that went beyond physical. I could feel his heartbeat, as if it were my own, could sense his emotions, like they were colors painting across my consciousness. He was relieved, possessive, fiercely protective, and underneath it all, a love so profound it terrified me with its intensity. Can you feel me? He asked softly, his thumb brushing across the fresh mark on my neck. Yes, my voice came out shaky with emotion. I can feel everything. Good. His smile was fierce and tender at once. Because I'm never letting you go, Seren. Not for anything. Not for anyone. He turned to address the assembled pack, his arm still wrapped protectively around my waist. Seren Ashenvale is now Seren Stormcrown, Queen of the Northern Territories, and my bonded mate, he announced, his voice carrying absolute authority. Any disrespect shown to her is disrespect shown to me. Any harm done to her will be answered with the full might of my throne. Spread the word. The pack bowed as one, acknowledgement and submission to his declaration. Thorn lay at the edge of the circle, watching with an expression of impotent rage and humiliation. Our eyes met across the distance, and I saw him truly for the first time, not as my husband or my captor, but as a small, cruel man who tried to make himself feel bigger by making me feel worthless. I felt nothing, no anger, no satisfaction in his defeat, just a hollow kind of pity for someone who'd never understand what he'd lost. We're leaving, Calith said, pulling my attention back to him. Tonight, I won't have you spend one more hour in this place. My things will be collected and sent to the palace. You don't need anything from here, except yourself. His earth tone eyes, back to their normal color now, softened as they met mine. Unless There's something specific you want? I thought about my sparse belongings in those lonely eastern wing chambers. The grey dresses, the scent blockers, the reminders of 9 years spent trying to disappear. No, I said firmly. There's nothing I want from here. Then we leave now. Chapter 5. Threshold of New Worlds. The journey to the Northern Palace took 3 hours by car, one of the modern conveniences Calith had adopted, despite his ancient origins. I sat beside him in the back of the sleek black vehicle, hyper-aware of every point where our bodies touched. His hand held mine, thumb tracing absent patterns across my knuckles. The mate bond thrummed between us, a constant warm presence that still felt surreal. "You're anxious," Calith observed, his earth-tone eyes studying my face. "I can feel it through the bond." "Is it always this intense?" I asked, feeling each other's emotions. "It will settle after the first few days. Right now, everything is heightened because the bond is fresh." His hand squeezed mine gently. "But we'll always have some awareness of each other. Is that frightening?" "No," I answered honestly. "Just different. 9 years of being alone in my own head, and now you're there too." "I can teach you to shield if you want privacy," he offered. "It's possible to maintain boundaries within a mate bond. Do you want privacy from me?" His laugh was low and warm. "No, love. I want you in my head, in my heart, in every part of my existence. But you've had your autonomy stolen for 9 years. I won't do the same, even unintentionally." The consideration in his words made my throat tight with emotion. "Maybe later," I said. "Right now, I like feeling that you're real, that this isn't some elaborate dream I'll wake from." Calith lifted our joined hands and pressed a kiss to my knuckles. "Very real and permanent. You're stuck with me for eternity now." "Eternity? You're mated to an immortal king, Seren. The bond will extend your lifespan to match mine. We have centuries together." He paused, concern flickering across his features. "Unless you don't want—" "I want," I interrupted quickly. "I just hadn't thought about it." "There's a lot we'll need to discuss," Calith admitted, "about what being my queen means, the responsibilities, the dangers, the politics." His expression darkened slightly. "I won't lie to you. My world can be brutal. There are enemies who will see you as a weakness to exploit." "Are you trying to scare me?" "I'm trying to prepare you." His earth-tone eyes held mine with serious intensity. "But I'm also promising that I will burn down anyone who tries to hurt you. You'll never be unprotected again." The fierce protectiveness in his voice sent warmth flooding through the bond. "Tell me about your palace," I said, wanting to lighten the mood. "My new home." Calith's expression softened. "It's carved into the northern mountains, part stone fortress, part modern comfort. Cold, but beautiful. I'll have the heating increased in our private chambers." He smiled slightly. "I'm accustomed to the cold, after 2 centuries of being frozen inside." "You won't be." "Our private chambers," I repeated, testing the words. "You'll have your own rooms if you want space," he clarified quickly. "But I'd prefer—" He trailed off, something almost vulnerable crossing his features. "Prefer what?" "I'd prefer you in my bed, every night." His thumb traced across my palm. "I've slept alone for 200 years, Seren. Now that I've found you, the thought of separate bedrooms feels like torture." The honesty in his admission made my heart clench. "I'd like that too," I admitted quietly. I'm tired of being alone. The smile that broke across his face was radiant. We drove in comfortable silence for a while, my head eventually coming to rest on his shoulder, as exhaustion from the emotional upheaval of the day began to catch up with me. Sleep, if you need to, Caliph murmured, his arm coming around me. I'll wake you when we arrive. Tell me something, I said instead, fighting the pull of sleep. Something about you. I don't know. What do you want to know? Your brother. The twin you lost. I felt him tense slightly. You don't have to if it's too painful. His name was Kieran, Caliph said softly. He was younger by 3 minutes, and never let me forget it. More reckless than me, more prone to laughter. His voice carried centuries of grief. He died in the Great War between the territories, taking a blade meant for me. I absorbed his death to try to save him, but I was too late. I'm sorry, I whispered. It broke something in me, froze me from the inside out, until I couldn't feel anything. Not joy, not pain, not even anger. Just emptiness. His hand tightened on mine. Until your scent reminded me what it felt like to be alive. Do you think? I hesitated, then pushed forward. Do you think our twins brought us together? That they somehow knew? Caliph was quiet for a long moment. Then, I'd like to believe that Kieran and your sister are somewhere together, pleased that we found each other. The thought was beautiful and heartbreaking at once. What was she like? I asked. In the scent you catch from me? Gentle, soft, everything you are, but quieter, like an echo. His lips pressed against my hair. You're the one who lived, Seren. You're the one who fought. Her sacrifice gave you strength, not weakness. Remember that. I felt tears prick my eyes and let them fall silently against his shoulder. We drove through the night, leaving Ashenvale territory far behind, heading north toward mountains and a palace and a future I couldn't quite imagine yet. But for the first time in 9 years, I wasn't afraid of what came next, because I wasn't facing it alone. Chapter 6. The Palace of Ice and Stone. The northern palace materialized from the darkness, like something from a fairy tale, carved into the mountainside, all grey stone and soaring spires, illuminated by moonlight and strategically placed lights that made it glow against the night sky. It was beautiful and imposing, and utterly unlike the warm wooden structures of Ashenvale. Home, Caliph said softly, watching my reaction. What do you think? It's magnificent, I breathed. It's cold, he corrected, with a slight smile. But we'll make it warmer together. The car pulled through massive iron gates and into a courtyard where dozens of people had assembled, despite the late hour, warriors in formation, staff in formal uniforms, all waiting to greet their king, and his new queen. My anxiety spiked immediately. Caliph, I'm not ready. You don't have to be ready. You just have to be yourself. His hand cupped my face gently. They're here to serve you, not judge you. Remember that. The door opened, and Caliph stepped out first, then turned to offer me his hand. I took it, letting him help me from the car, and immediately felt the weight of dozens of eyes assessing me. Your Majesty. A stern-looking older woman approached, bowing deeply. Welcome home, and welcome, Your Majesty, she added, addressing me with equal respect. I am Helena, head of palace staff. We've prepared the Queen's chambers. She'll be staying in my chambers, Caliph interrupted smoothly. Please have her belongings placed there when they arrive from Ashenvale. Helena's expression didn't flicker. Of course, Your Majesty. Shall I have a meal sent up? Please, something light. Calith's arm came around my waist, a clear signal of possession and protection, and spread the word. Queen Seren is to be afforded every courtesy and every protection. Her word carries the same weight as mine. A murmur ran through the assembled staff, surprise and speculation. Now, if you'll excuse us, Calith continued, my mate has had an exhausting day. We'll make formal introductions tomorrow. He led me through the massive doors and into the palace interior, leaving the assembled crowd behind. The inside was exactly as he described. Stone walls, warmed by tapestries, and strategically placed fireplaces, modern lighting fixtures, blending with ancient architecture. It was beautiful, in a stark, powerful way. The palace has 3 main wings, Calith explained as we walked through corridors. East wing is administrative, offices, meeting rooms, archives. West wing houses the guard barracks and training facilities. Central wing is residential. He guided me up a sweeping stone staircase. Our chambers are on the top floor, most private and secure. We climbed in silence, my hand still clasped in his, until we reached a set of double doors, carved with intricate wolf designs. My rooms, Calith said, then corrected. Our rooms now. He opened the doors, and I stepped into a space that was somehow exactly what I'd expected, and nothing like it at the same time. The chambers were vast. A sitting area with comfortable furniture arranged before a massive fireplace, floor-to-ceiling windows, offering views of the mountains, and through an open doorway, a bedroom dominated by what had to be the largest bed I'd ever seen. Everything was done in shades of grey and deep blue, with silver accents that caught the firelight. Beautiful but cold, lonely, a space designed for existing, not living. It needs warmth, Calith said, echoing my thoughts. Your touch, your presence. He turned to face me fully. Change anything you want. This is your home now. Before I could respond, a soft knock sounded at the door. Enter, Calith called. 2 staff members entered with covered trays, setting up a light meal on the sitting area table before bowing and departing quickly. My stomach growled, reminding me I hadn't eaten since early morning, before my entire world had changed. Eat, Calith encouraged, guiding me to the table. Then rest. We have time for everything else. The food was simple, but delicious. Bread and cheese and fruit, along with some kind of hearty soup that warmed me from the inside out. Calith watched me eat, with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable, but somehow wasn't. You're staring, I observed between bites. I'm memorizing, he corrected, every expression, every gesture. 9 years of you being invisible, and now I want to see everything. The admission made my chest tight with emotion. When I'd finished eating, exhaustion crashed over me in a wave. The adrenaline that had sustained me through the challenge and journey was finally wearing off. Calith noticed immediately. Come, he said, standing and offering his hand. Let's get you ready for bed. He led me to the bedroom, and I stopped in the doorway, suddenly uncertain. We were mated, bonded, but we'd only known each other for hours, and despite the intensity of our connection, I didn't know how to navigate this new reality. Seren? Calith said softly, reading my hesitation. I'm not expecting anything tonight except your presence. You're exhausted. We have eternity for everything else. Relief and disappointment warred in my chest, a confusing combination. But I do want to hold you, he continued, his earth tone eyes meeting mine with gentle intensity. I want to fall asleep with my mate in my arms after 2 centuries of sleeping alone. Is that acceptable? Yes, I whispered. He showed me to an ensuite bathroom that was more luxurious than anything I'd experienced at Ashenvale, with a massive soaking tub and shower that could fit multiple people. Take your time, Caliph said. I'll wait. The hot water felt like heaven against my skin, washing away the scent blocker I'd applied that morning, washing away the invisible weight of 9 years spent making myself small. When I emerged wrapped in a plush robe, I found hanging behind the door, Caliph was waiting in the bedroom, already changed into sleep pants, his chest bare and marked with scars that told stories of survival. He was beautiful, in a way that made my breath catch. There's clothing in the wardrobe that should fit, he said, gesturing to a massive wooden piece. Helena anticipated your sizes. I found soft sleeping clothes and changed quickly, hyper-aware of Caliph's presence just on the other side of the room. When I emerged, he was pulling back the covers on the enormous bed. Come here, he said softly. I crossed the room on shaky legs and let him guide me into bed. The mattress was impossibly comfortable, the sheets soft and cool against my skin. Caliph slid in beside me and immediately pulled me against his chest, arranging us so my head rested over his heart, his arms wrapped securely around me. Better, he murmured. Much better, I admitted. Through the bond, I could feel his contentment, deep and warm and utterly at peace for the first time in what felt like centuries. Sleep, love, he whispered into my hair. I'll keep watch. You need sleep too. I will. Eventually. His hand traced lazy patterns on my back, but right now, I'm exactly where I want to be, holding my mate, feeling her breathe, knowing she's safe and mine, and never going to be hurt again. The fierce protectiveness in his voice made me feel cherished, in a way I'd never experienced. Caliph, I whispered into the darkness. Yes? Thank you, for seeing me, for fighting for me, for... My voice broke. For making me believe I was worth something. His arms tightened around me. You were always worth everything, Seren. Always. And I'll spend the rest of our lives proving it. I fell asleep to the steady beat of his heart, wrapped in warmth and safety, the mate bond humming contentedly between us. For the first time in 9 years, I didn't feel broken. I felt home. Chapter 7. The morning after I woke to sunlight, streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, and the sensation of being watched. My eyes fluttered open to find Caliph propped up on one elbow beside me, his earth-tone gaze tracking my face with an intensity that should have been unsettling, but somehow wasn't. How long have you been awake? I asked, my voice still rough with sleep. A while. His hand came up to brush a strand of silver blonde hair from my face with devastating gentleness. I like watching you sleep. You look peaceful. That's not creepy at all, I teased, surprised at my own boldness. His lips quirked into an almost smile. I'm an ancient, immortal king who's been emotionally frozen for 2 centuries. You should expect some creepy behavior. I laughed, actually laughed, and watched something warm bloom in his expression. I like that sound, he murmured. Your laugh. I want to hear it every day. Before I could respond, my stomach growled loudly, breaking the intimate moment. Caliph's smile widened. Breakfast first, then I'll show you the palace. Unless you'd prefer to stay in bed all day? His eyes darkened with suggestion. I could be persuaded. Heat flooded my cheeks. Breakfast sounds good. Practical choice. He rolled out of bed with fluid grace and offered me his hand. Come, let's face my court. Your court? Alarm spiked through me. I thought you said formal introductions were today. Not right now. Relax, love. Caliph pulled me against his chest, his hand rubbing soothing circles on my back. Just key members over breakfast. My inner circle. People you'll need to know. Through the bond, I felt him sending calm and reassurance. I'll be with you the entire time. An hour later, after I'd bathed and Helena had miraculously produced appropriate clothing in my exact size, I found myself walking beside Caliph through the palace corridors toward what he called the informal dining room. My dress was beautiful, deep sapphire blue that brought out my grey eyes, fitted but comfortable, clearly expensive. I felt like I was wearing someone else's skin. You look beautiful, Caliph said, sensing my discomfort through the bond. And you belong here. Remember that. We entered a sunlit room where 5 people were already seated around a large table. They all rose immediately when Caliph entered, bowing respectfully. Sit, Caliph commanded, his hand never leaving the small of my back as he guided me to a chair at his right hand, the position of highest honor. Everyone, this is Seren Stormcrown, my queen and bonded mate. Seren, these are the people who help me run the Northern Territories. He gestured to each person in turn. Mira, you've already met. Second in command of the Royal Guard. The red-haired warrior woman from the previous night inclined her head with a warm smile. Theron is my first general. A massive male with silver-streaked hair and battle scars that suggested a long, violent history nodded respectfully. He commands our military forces. Marcus handles our finances and trade agreements. A sharp-eyed male who looked like he could calculate odds while sleeping offered a slight smile. Milena is my chief advisor on magical affairs. A striking woman with purple-tinted hair and eyes that seemed to see too much watched me with open curiosity. And Cassius is my second, essentially Prime Minister of the Territories. A handsome male with dark skin and intelligent eyes studied me with guarded interest. Welcome, Your Majesty, Cassius said, his tone respectful but measuring. We were surprised by the Alpha King's sudden bonding, but pleased, naturally. Surprised is putting it mildly, Marcus interjected with a slight laugh. He's been refusing potential mates for 2 centuries. We'd given up hope. Because none of them were her, Caliph said simply, his hand finding mine under the table and lacing our fingers together. Questions? Many, Milena said, her purple eyes fixed on me with disconcerting intensity. But perhaps better asked privately. Ask now, I heard myself say, surprising everyone, including myself. I'd rather address concerns openly. Milena's eyebrows rose with approval. Direct, I like that. She leaned forward. Forgive my bluntness, Your Majesty, but I can sense powerful magic around you. Old magic, death magic. What are you? Milena? Caliph's voice carried warning. It's fine, I interrupted, squeezing his hand. I'm a soul vessel. I absorbed my twin sister's death before we were born. It created a mourning veil, a scent that smells like death to most wolves, but like eternal spring to... I hesitated, then pushed forward, to my true mate. The table went utterly silent. A soul vessel, Milena breathed, her eyes going wide. Goddess above, no wonder the bond is so strong. You're both soul vessels. Both? Mira asked, confused. The Alpha King absorbed his twin brother's death 200 years ago, Milena explained, still staring at me with something like awe. It froze him emotionally, blocked his ability to feel. Only another soul vessel would be able to break that curse. It's not a curse, Calith corrected quietly. It's fate. We were marked by our twins' deaths, so we could find each other. The romantic notion made my chest ache. This is unprecedented, Cassius said, his expression thoughtful. A bonded pair of soul vessels. The magical implications alone can be discussed later, Calith interrupted firmly. Right now, my mate needs to eat, and you all need to understand that Seren's word carries the same weight as mine. Any orders she gives are to be followed as if they came from me directly. That brought another round of surprised looks, but everyone nodded respectfully. Breakfast was served, an elaborate spread that seemed excessive for morning, and conversation flowed around topics ranging from territory politics to trade disputes to a concerning increase in rogue wolf activity near the eastern borders. I mostly listened, trying to absorb the complex dynamics of ruling vast territories, but occasionally Calith would pull me into the conversation with a gentle question or touch. "What do you think, love?" he asked at one point when they were discussing a dispute between two neighboring packs. Should we mediate or let them resolve it themselves? Everyone turned to look at me expectantly. I took a breath, considering. What started the dispute? Hunting territory boundaries, Marcus supplied. One pack claims the other crossed into their land and took down a prize elk. And is the boundary clearly marked? It's disputed, Cassius admitted. The original treaty was written 3 centuries ago. The landmarks it references have shifted due to natural changes in the landscape. Then mediate, I said firmly. They're fighting over unclear boundaries, which means neither is truly at fault. Redraw the borders with modern landmarks and compensate both packs for the confusion. Punishing either side will just breed resentment. The table was quiet for a moment. Then Theron, the massive general, laughed, a deep, booming sound. She's been queen for less than a day, and she's already solving problems we've been dancing around for weeks. I like her, Your Majesty. Calith's hand squeezed mine under the table, and through the bond, I felt his pride and affection surge. Told you she was perfect, he said, his eyes warm as they met mine. The rest of breakfast passed in similar fashion, the inner circle slowly warming to me, testing me with questions and scenarios, seeming pleased when I offered opinions, instead of deferring entirely to Calith. By the time the meal ended, some of my anxiety had eased. That went better than I expected, I admitted to Calith, as we walked through the palace corridors afterward, his arm around my waist. They respect strength and intelligence. You showed both. He pressed a kiss to my temple. They'll be fiercely loyal to you within a week. You'll see. What now? I asked. Now I show you the rest of your new home. His eyes darkened with something heated. And then, if you're willing, I'd very much like to finish what we started last night. My breath caught at the promise in his voice. I'm willing, I whispered. His smile was fierce and tender at once. Then let's make this quick. Chapter 8. Claiming and Intimacy. The palace tour was thorough but rushed. Calith showing me the essential areas with barely contained impatience that I could feel thrumming through our bond. The library with its ancient texts and comfortable reading nooks. the training grounds where warriors sparred under Theron's watchful eye. The gardens that even in early spring showed signs of careful cultivation. The council chambers where territory business was conducted. But his mind was clearly elsewhere, as was mine. Every time his hand brushed against my lower back, every time his scent wrapped around me, every time our eyes met and held, the tension between us ratcheted higher. By the time we returned to our chambers, my heart was racing, and my skin felt too tight. Calith closed the door behind us and leaned against it, his earth tone, eyes tracking me with predatory intensity as I moved deeper into the sitting room. Seren? My name in his mouth sounded like sin and salvation. Come here. I turned to face him, my breath catching at the raw hunger in his expression. We should talk about... Later. He pushed off the door and crossed to me in 3 long strides. We can talk about expectations and boundaries and all the practical things later. Right now, I need to touch you, taste you, claim you so thoroughly that you never doubt who you belong to. His hands cupped my face, tilting it up to meet his blazing gaze. Tell me you want this. Tell me you want me. I want this, I breathed. I want you. The kiss that followed was nothing like the claiming kiss after the challenge. That had been possessive and fierce. This was consuming. Calith's mouth moving over mine with desperate hunger, while his hands traced down my sides, learning my curves through the fabric of my dress. Too many clothes, he growled against my lips. Can I? Yes, I interrupted. Whatever you want, yes. Something in him snapped. He swept me into his arms and carried me to the bedroom, laying me on the massive bed with reverent care despite the hunger blazing in his eyes. Then he stepped back, his hands going to the laces of his shirt. Watch me, he commanded softly. I want you to see what you do to me. He stripped slowly, revealing battle-scarred skin and lean muscle, every movement controlled despite the tension coiling through his frame. When he was bare before me, I couldn't stop my sharp intake of breath. He was magnificent. Your turn, he said, his voice dropping to rough velvet. But I'm doing it. I've waited 200 years to undress my mate. Don't deny me this. I nodded, unable to form words. Calith approached the bed with predatory grace, his hands finding the laces of my dress. He worked slowly, deliberately, his knuckles brushing against my skin with each pull of the fabric. You're trembling, he observed, pausing. Are you frightened? No. My voice came out breathy. Overwhelmed. No one has ever looked at me the way you do. Like I'm precious. You are precious. He slid the dress off my shoulders, exposing more skin. The most precious thing in my world. His lips followed the path of the fabric, pressing hot kisses against my collarbone. And I'm going to spend hours proving it. By the time he'd removed all my clothing, I was shaking with need. His hands mapped my body with worshipful attention, tracing scars I'd accumulated over the years, pressing kisses to the mark on my neck that proclaimed me his. Perfect, he murmured against my skin. Every inch of you. Perfect. Calith, please. Patience, love. His smile was wicked as he settled between my thighs, his breath hot against my most sensitive places. I told you I was going to worship you. Let me. What followed was exquisite torture. Calith using his mouth and hands to drive me to the edge of pleasure again and again, only to pull back when I was about to fall over. Through the bond, I could feel his satisfaction at my responses, his own hunger, building with each sound I made. "I can't," I gasped, my hands fisting in his hair. "Please, I need—" "Tell me what you need," he demanded, his earth-tone eyes meeting mine with fierce intensity. "You, inside me, now." He moved up my body in one fluid motion, positioning himself at my entrance. "Look at me," he commanded. "I want to watch your face when I claim you completely." Our eyes locked as he pushed inside slowly, giving me time to adjust to his size. The sensation was overwhelming. Pleasure edged with slight discomfort that faded quickly as my body welcomed his. "Mine," he growled when he was fully seated. "Say it." "Yours," I gasped. "Always yours." He began to move, and the world narrowed to sensation. The slide of skin against skin, the sound of our harsh breathing, the mate bond flaring brighter with each thrust. Through it, I could feel his pleasure amplifying my own, creating a feedback loop that drove us both higher. "Touch yourself," Caliph commanded roughly. "I want to feel you come apart around me." My hand slid between us, and the added stimulation pushed me over the edge. I shattered with a cry, my body clenching around his as pleasure exploded through every nerve. Caliph followed seconds later, his release triggered by mine, his face buried in my neck as he growled my name like a prayer. We lay tangled together afterward, hearts racing, the bond humming with satisfaction. "I love you," Caliph said quietly, his hand tracing patterns on my bare skin. "I know it's fast. I know we've only known each other a day. But I've been waiting 200 years for you, Seren. And now that I have you, I need you to know. I love you." Tears pricked my eyes. "I love you too. I didn't think I was capable of it anymore after 9 years with Thorn. But you make me feel everything." He kissed me softly, tenderly, so different from the passion of moments before. "We should sleep. You need rest. Later," I said, surprising myself with my boldness. "Right now, I want more. I want to memorize what it feels like to be loved by you." His smile was fierce and beautiful, as my queen commands. Chapter 9. The Serpent in the Garden. 3 days of blissful peace followed. 3 days of exploring the palace, meeting more staff members, learning the rhythms of my new life. 3 days of falling deeper in love with my mate, of discovering that joy was possible, that being cherished wasn't a fantasy. 3 days before everything went wrong. I was in the library, my new favorite space, reading about soul vessel history, when Mira burst through the doors, her expression grim. "Your Majesty, we have a situation." I set down my book immediately. "What's wrong?" "Lady Cassia has been spreading rumors throughout the court, claiming the bond between you and the king is false, that you used dark magic to bewitch him." Mira's jaw clenched. "She's gathering support from nobles who are uncomfortable with the sudden shift in power." Ice flooded my veins. "What kind of support?" "Nothing treasonous yet, but she's planting seeds, questioning your legitimacy, suggesting the king is under some kind of enchantment." Mira's green eyes met mine seriously. "It's dangerous, Your Majesty. Even baseless rumors can erode authority if left unchecked." "Where is she now?" "The East Parlor, holding court with a group of noble wives." Anger, hot and unfamiliar, surged through me. For 9 years I'd accepted being diminished, being dismissed, being treated as less than. Not anymore. "Take me there," I commanded. Mira's smile was sharp with approval. "Yes, Your Majesty." The East Parlor was exactly as I'd imagined. Lavishly decorated, filled with well-dressed women sipping tea and exchanging gossip. Cassia sat at the centre like a queen holding court, her honey-blonde hair perfectly styled, her amber eyes bright with malicious satisfaction. The conversation died when I entered. "Your Majesty," Cassia stood with exaggerated surprise. "We weren't expecting you. Please join us." "I'm not here to join you," I said clearly, my voice carrying across the room. "I'm here to address the rumors you've been spreading." Several women gasped. Cassia's expression flickered. Surprise, then calculation, then false innocence. "Rumors, Your Majesty? I'm sure I don't know what you mean. Don't insult my intelligence." I moved deeper into the room, feeling Mira's solid presence at my back. "You've been telling people my bond with the king is false, that I used magic to bewitch him, that I'm unworthy of my position. I would never. You confronted me in my chambers 3 days ago and told me the king would tire of me," I continued, my voice steady, despite the anger burning through me. "You called me broken and plain and worthless. So let's not pretend you've been singing my praises behind my back." The room was utterly silent, every eye fixed on the confrontation. Cassia's mask finally slipped, revealing the venom beneath. "Fine. You want honesty? You're nothing. A discarded omega from a minor pack. You have no training, no connections, no skills that would make you suitable as a queen. The king is clearly under some kind of enchantment." "Careful," a male voice cut through the room like a blade. Everyone spun to find Calith standing in the doorway, his earth-tone eyes blazing with cold fury. How long he'd been there, I didn't know, but his expression promised violence. "Your Majesty," Cassia's voice pitched higher with panic. "I was just insulting my mate." Calith moved into the room with lethal grace, questioning her legitimacy, suggesting I'm weak-minded enough to be enchanted. Each word dropped like stones. "Is that accurate?" "I?" "Answer carefully, Lady Cassia. Your continued presence in my court depends on it." The threat was unmistakable. Cassia's face had gone white. "I merely expressed concerns." "You expressed jealousy." Calith's voice was arctic. "And in doing so, you insulted not just my mate, but my judgment, my authority, and the sacred mate bond itself." He stepped closer to her, his dominance rolling out in waves that brought several women to their knees. "You have 2 choices. Apologize to my queen sincerely and swear loyalty, or leave my territory permanently. Choose now." Cassia looked between us, calculation and rage warring on her features. For a moment, I thought she might actually choose exile out of spite. Then she dropped to her knees before me. "Your Majesty," she gritted out, her voice dripping with false contrition. "I apologize for my disrespectful words. I was overcome with emotion. I swear my loyalty to you and the king." Every word was a lie, but it was the lie that mattered politically. "Accepted," I said, my voice cool. "But understand this, Lady Cassia. Speak against me again, spread one more rumor, cause one more moment of discord, and exile will be the kindest option you receive. Are we clear?" "Crystal, Your Majesty." "Good, then you're dismissed, all of you." The women fled like scattered birds, leaving only Calith, Mira, and me in the ornate parlor. The moment the door closed, Calith pulled me against his chest. "Are you all right?" "I'm furious," I admitted, my hands fisting in his shirt, and a little proud of myself for handling it. "You were magnificent." His lips pressed against my hair, But Mira's right. This is dangerous. Cassia won't stop just because you confronted her publicly. She'll be more careful, more subtle. Then we'll be more vigilant, Mira said firmly. I'll have her watched. Any move she makes, we'll know about it. Do it, Calith ordered. Then to me, I'm sorry you had to deal with this. With her? I'm not. I pulled back to meet his eyes. For 9 years, I let people diminish me. I let them make me feel worthless without fighting back. I'm not doing that anymore. If being your queen means defending my position, then I'll defend it. The pride and love in his expression made my chest tight. My fierce mate, he murmured. I knew you had strength underneath all that forced invisibility. I'm just glad you're finally letting it show. Chapter 10. The Sister. A week after the confrontation with Cassia, I received a letter that changed everything. Dear Seren, my name is Lyric. I'm your twin sister. I know this must be a shock. Mother never told me about you. Not until recently, when news of your bonding to the Alpha King reached our pack. She finally confessed the truth, that I had a twin who sacrificed herself to give me life. I need to meet you. I need to thank you. I need to know the sister I never knew existed. Please, let me come to the Northern Palace. Let me see the face that mirrors mine. With hope, Lyric. My hands trembled as I read the words again and again, tears streaming down my face. Calith found me like that, curled in the window seat of our chambers, clutching the letter like a lifeline, sobbing with emotions I couldn't name. Seren. He was beside me instantly, his hands cupping my face. What's wrong? Are you hurt? My sister, I gasped out. She wants to meet me. Understanding flooded his features. He took the letter from my shaking hands and read it quickly, then pulled me into his lap. This is good news, he said gently. Why are you crying? I don't know, I admitted. I'm happy and terrified and overwhelmed. What if she hates me? What if she blames me for surviving, when she should have... Stop. Calith's thumb pressed against my lips. Read her words again, love. She wants to thank you, to know you. This is a gift. What if I disappoint her? Impossible. His certainty was absolute. You're perfect. She'll see that immediately. He pressed a kiss to my forehead. Right back. Invite her to visit. I'll ensure her travel is safe and comfortable. You don't mind? Mind? He looked genuinely confused. Seren, she's your twin, the one you saved. Of course I don't mind. I want you to have this connection. So I wrote back that same day, my hands still shaking, inviting Lyric to visit within the week. Her response came 2 days later, an enthusiastic yes that made me cry all over again. The day of her arrival, I was a nervous wreck. I changed outfits 3 times, drove Helena to distraction with questions about appropriate refreshments, and paced the entrance hall until Calith physically stopped me. Breathe, he commanded, his hands on my shoulders. She's going to love you. Stop panicking. What if we have nothing in common? What if... Seren? He tilted my face up to meet his eyes. You shared a womb. You saved her life before either of you had names. You have everything in common where it matters. His smile was gentle. Trust this. Trust her. The sound of an approaching car made my heart slam against my ribs. Then the doors opened, and a woman stepped through who looked so much like me. It was like seeing my reflection move independently. Same silver blonde hair, though hers was cut shorter. Same grey eyes, though hers sparkled with uncomplicated joy. Same delicate features, though hers had never learned to hide pain. "Seren," she breathed, her voice trembling with emotion. "Lyric," I responded, my own voice breaking. We moved toward each other simultaneously, meeting in the middle of the entrance hall, embracing with the desperation of two halves finally made whole. She smelled like springtime and new growth. Everything I apparently smelled like to Calith, but softer, gentler, unmarked by death, because I'd filtered it for her. "Thank you," she sobbed against my shoulder. "Thank you for giving me life. Thank you for sacrificing." "I didn't know I was doing it. I interrupted, holding her tighter. I couldn't let you go." "Even then." She pulled back to cut my face, her grey eyes, mirrors of my own, shining with tears. "Even before we were born, you were protecting me. How do I ever repay that?" "By being here," I said simply. "By letting me know you. That's all I want." Calith cleared his throat gently, reminding us we had an audience. The entrance hall had filled with curious staff members drawn by the commotion. "Everyone," I said, my arm still around my sister. "This is Lyric, my twin. She'll be staying as our honored guest." The staff bowed respectfully, though I caught several misty eyes among them. Even hardened warriors seemed moved by the reunion. "Come," I said to Lyric. "Let me show you our home." We spent hours talking, making up for 27 years of missed conversations. She told me about her life in the Western Pack, about her mate who she'd bonded with 5 years ago, about her work as a healer. "I always felt like something was missing," she confessed, as we sat in the gardens, the afternoon sun warm on our faces, like I was only half of something that should have been whole. Now I understand why. "I felt that too," I admitted, especially after I bonded with Thorn and realized the connection was false. "I thought I was broken." "You were never broken." Her hand found mine and squeezed. "You were always exactly what you were meant to be, strong enough to carry death so I could live." We sat in comfortable silence for a moment before she spoke again. "Tell me about him. Your king. Your true mate." A smile bloomed across my face without conscious thought. "He's everything. Fierce and protective and surprisingly gentle. He sees me in ways no one ever has." "The way he looks at you," Lyric said softly. "It's like you're his entire world. I saw it the moment we met in the entrance hall. He was watching you, like someone guarding the most precious treasure in existence." Warmth flooded through the mate bond, and I glanced up to find Calith standing at the garden entrance, his earth tone eyes soft as they met mine. "Speaking of," I said, standing and pulling Lyric with me, "let me introduce you properly." The introduction was warm and easy. Calith was gracious and welcoming, asking Lyric about her travels and her mate, making her feel comfortable, despite his intimidating presence. "Thank you," Lyric said to him at one point, her voice serious, "for seeing what Seren truly is, for giving her the love she deserves." "I should be thanking her," Calith responded, his hand finding mine. "She brought me back to life after 2 centuries of being frozen. She's my salvation." That night, after Lyric had been shown to guest chambers and the palace had settled into evening quiet, I lay in Calith's arms, feeling more complete than I'd ever imagined possible. "Thank you," I whispered into the darkness. "For what?" "For encouraging me to meet her, for making her feel welcome," for understanding how much this means to me. His arms tightened around me. You're my mate, Seren. Your happiness is my happiness. Your pain is my pain. Seeing you reunited with your sister. His lips pressed against my hair. That joy through our bond is the most beautiful thing I've ever felt. I turned in his arms to kiss him properly, pouring my love and gratitude into it. I love you, I murmured against his lips. I love you, he responded. Always. But even as we settled into sleep, wrapped in contentment, danger was brewing in the shadows. Cassia hadn't forgotten her humiliation, and her revenge was already in motion. Chapter 11. Poison and Revelation. The attack came 3 days after Lyric's arrival, during a formal dinner with visiting nobles from the Eastern Territories. I was laughing at something Lyric had said, my wine glass halfway to my lips, when Calith's hand shot out and knocked it from my grasp. The crystal shattered against the stone floor, dark red wine spreading like blood. Nobody move, Calith commanded, his voice carrying absolute authority. His earth-tone eyes had gone cold and lethal. Mira, seal the room. Milena, test that wine, now. The dinner party erupted into confused murmurs, but Mira was already at the doors, guards moving to positions with military efficiency. Milena approached the spilled wine with her hands glowing faint purple. She waved them over the liquid, her expression growing darker with each passing second. Wolfsbane, she announced grimly, mixed with shadowroot and nightshade, a lethal combination designed specifically to kill soul vessels. Her purple eyes met mine with frightening intensity. Your Majesty, if you'd taken even one sip, you'd be dead within minutes. The room went deathly silent. Ice flooded my veins as the reality sank in. Someone had just tried to murder me, at my own table, surrounded by guards and magic and my mate. Calith's rage exploded through our bond, so intense I gasped with the force of it. When he spoke, his voice was lethal quiet. Someone in this room just attempted to assassinate my queen. That person has exactly 10 seconds to confess before I tear this palace apart, finding them. His dominance rolled out in waves that brought nobles to their knees. 10, 9, 8. It was me. The voice came from near the serving entrance. A young servant girl, barely 20, her face pale and terrified. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she stepped forward. I poisoned the wine, she sobbed. But I didn't want to. She made me. She said she'd kill my family if I didn't. Who? Calith's voice could have cut glass. Who made you? Lady Cassia. The girl collapsed to her knees, shaking with terror. She said the queen was an imposter, that she'd bewitched you, that killing her was protecting the realm. Enough. Calith turned to Mira. Find Cassia. Bring her to me. Now. Mira disappeared with several guards. Calith crossed to where I sat frozen with shock and pulled me into his arms, his hands running over me like he needed to confirm I was unharmed. You're safe, he murmured, though I could feel the tremor in his hands. I've got you. You're safe. How did you know? I whispered against his chest. Your scent changed for a split second when the wine got close to you. Went bitter. Your wolf recognized the poison, even if you didn't consciously register it. His arms tightened. I will never let anyone hurt you. Never. Through the bond, I could feel his emotions, rage and terror, and fierce protectiveness warring for dominance. The girl, I said, pulling back to look at the sobbing servant. She's a victim too. Cassia threatened her family. I know. Calith's expression was grim, but she still committed attempted regicide. There will be consequences. Mercy, I found myself saying. She was coerced. Show mercy. Every eye in the room turned to me, shocked that I'd plead for leniency towards someone who'd just tried to kill me. Caliph studied my face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Because my queen requests it. The girl will be spared execution, but exiled from court. He turned to the terrified servant. You have 1 hour to gather your family and leave Northern Territory. If you're found within our borders after that, the mercy offered tonight is void. Understood? Yes, Your Majesty. Thank you. Thank you. The girl sobbed with relief. Guards escorted her out, leaving the dinner party in shambles. Mira returned 20 minutes later, dragging a struggling Cassia between 2 massive warriors. Let me go! Cassia shrieked, her perfectly styled hair disheveled, her amber eyes wild. This is absurd! I've done nothing. You orchestrated the attempted assassination of the Queen, Caliph said, each word dropping like a death sentence. The servant girl confessed. She'll testify that you threatened her family and provided the poison. Cassia's face went white, then red with fury. That broken Omega isn't worthy of being queen. She's nothing. A discarded piece of trash that you're too bewitched to see clearly. The backhanded slap came from an unexpected source. Lyric, my gentle twin sister, stepped forward and struck Cassia across the face, with enough force to snap her head sideways. That broken Omega is my sister, Lyric said, her voice shaking with rage. The one who sacrificed herself before birth to save me. She's worth 1,000 of you. Cassia stared at Lyric in shock, one hand pressed to her reddening cheek. You tried to kill someone who's only ever been kind, Lyric continued. Someone who showed you mercy when she could have crushed you. You're pathetic. Enough, Caliph said, though approval flickered in his eyes. Lady Cassia, you are hereby charged with attempted regicide, conspiracy to commit murder, and treason against the crown. How do you plead? I plead that you're under a spell. Cassia screamed. Open your eyes. She's nothing. I would have been the perfect queen. Take her to the dungeons, Caliph ordered, his voice flat and cold. Trial will be held tomorrow. Sentence will follow immediately after. As guards dragged the screaming Cassia away, Caliph turned to address the shocked dinner guests. This meal is concluded. Return to your chambers. We'll reconvene tomorrow after justice has been served. The nobles fled, leaving only Caliph's inner circle, Lyric, and me in the dining hall. Are you truly all right? Milena asked, approaching me with genuine concern. Soul vessel poison works quickly. If even a drop had touched your lips. I'm fine, I assured her, though my hands were still shaking. Thanks to Caliph's quick reflexes. This is my fault, Caliph said, his voice rough with self-recrimination. I should have exiled her after the confrontation in the parlor. I should have known she'd escalate. You couldn't have known she'd attempt murder, I interrupted, taking his hands. This isn't your fault. It's hers. She's right, Mira said firmly. Cassia made her choices. She'll face the consequences. But through the bond, I could feel Caliph's guilt eating at him. The terror of how close he'd come to losing me, mixing with rage at himself for not protecting me better. Everyone out, I said suddenly. I need a moment alone with my mate. The room cleared quickly, even Lyric understanding the dismissal. Once we were alone, I pulled Caliph down to sit beside me on the floor. Not the throne-like chairs, but the actual stone floor, grounding and real. Listen to me, I said. cupping his face and forcing him to meet my eyes. This is not your fault. Cassia's jealousy and cruelty are her own. You can't control other people's choices. I almost lost you. His voice cracked. 200 years of being frozen. Then 3 weeks of finally being alive. And I almost lost you to poison. Because I didn't anticipate. But you didn't lose me. I pressed my forehead to his. I'm here. I'm safe. Your wolf sensed the danger, and you reacted instantly. You saved me, Calith. Stop beating yourself up for not preventing something that didn't happen. His arms came around me with crushing force, his face buried in my neck, where his mark proclaimed me his. I can't lose you, he whispered against my skin. I won't survive it, not after finally finding you. You won't lose me, I promised. We're bonded, fated, nothing can separate us. We sat like that for a long time. 2 soul vessels, who'd found each other across impossible odds, holding tight in the aftermath of someone trying to tear them apart. Tomorrow, Calith finally said, his voice steadier, Cassia faces justice, and I want you there. I want her to see exactly who she tried to destroy. I want her to understand the magnitude of her failure. I'll be there, I promised. We'll face it together. Because that's what mates did. They faced everything together. Chapter 12. Justice and Awakening. The trial took place in the main throne room, a vast space of stone and soaring ceilings, designed to remind everyone of the crown's power and authority. I sat beside Calith on a throne that had been added specifically for me, dressed in formal queen's regalia that Helena had produced overnight. Deep sapphire velvet with silver embroidery, a circlet resting on my silver blonde hair, every inch the Queen Cassia had claimed I could never be. The room was packed. Nobles, warriors, staff, all gathered to witness justice for attempted regicide. Cassia was brought in shackled, her honey blonde hair tangled, her amber eyes still burning with unrepentant rage. Lady Cassia, Calith's voice rang out with absolute authority. You stand accused of attempted assassination of Queen Seren, conspiracy to commit murder, and treason against the crown. The evidence against you is overwhelming. Confession from your accomplice, magical analysis confirming the poison, and your own public statements expressing hatred toward the Queen. How do you plead? I plead that you're all blind, Cassia shrieked, her composure completely shattered. She's nothing! A broken Omega who trapped you with dark magic. I was trying to free you. Enough. Calith's dominance crashed through the room, forcing Cassia to her knees. You don't get to justify attempted murder as some noble cause. You were jealous, bitter, cruel, and now you'll face the consequences. He stood, his presence commanding every eye in the vast space. By the ancient laws, and my authority as Alpha King, I find you guilty on all charges. The sentence for attempted regicide is death. He paused, letting the words sink in. However, my queen has requested mercy on your behalf. Shock rippled through the crowd. Cassia's head snapped up, confusion and hope warring on her features. Death would be too quick, I said, standing beside Calith, my voice carrying across the throne room. Too easy. Instead, you'll be stripped of your title, your lands, your wealth. You'll be exiled from the Northern Territories permanently, and everywhere you go, every pack and territory you encounter, they'll know what you are. Someone who attempted to murder a queen out of petty jealousy. I stepped down from the dais, approaching Cassia, until I stood directly before her kneeling form. You wanted to destroy me because you thought I was nothing, I said quietly. But in the silent room, everyone heard. But I'm something, Cassia. I'm a soul vessel, a queen, a mate to the most powerful alpha in existence. And most importantly, I'm someone who chooses mercy even when rage would be easier. I leaned down so only she could hear my next words. Live with that. Live with the knowledge that the broken Omega you tried to kill had the power to end you and chose not to. Let that haunt you for the rest of your days. I straightened and turned back to Caliph. Exile her. Now. I want her gone from our home. Guards moved forward immediately, hauling Cassia to her feet. As they dragged her toward the doors, she began screaming curses and threats that echoed off the stone walls. But I didn't flinch, didn't feel afraid, because I wasn't that invisible, frightened Omega anymore. I was Queen Seren Stormcrown, and I had just showed mercy to someone who tried to murder me. The throne room erupted in surprised murmurs as Cassia disappeared from view. Let this be a lesson, Caliph announced, his voice carrying authority that silenced the room instantly. My queen is not to be underestimated, not to be threatened, not to be disrespected in any way. She has shown mercy today that I would not have granted. Remember that, and be grateful she's more generous than I am. The assembled crowd bowed as one, respect and acknowledgement. As we returned to the dais, I felt something shift inside me, a warmth in my chest that had nothing to do with a mate bond. It spread through my body like light breaking through darkness. Seren? Caliph's voice sounded distant. Love, your eyes? I looked down at my hands and gasped. They were glowing. Soft silver light emanated from my skin, growing brighter with each passing second. Through the bond, I felt Caliph's shock and awe. What's happening? I asked, my voice shaking. Milena pushed through the crowd, her purple eyes wide with amazement. Your power is awakening. Soul vessels who find their true mates sometimes develop abilities beyond normal wolves. You're manifesting. The light grew brighter, and suddenly I could see things I hadn't noticed before. Threads of energy connecting people throughout the room, some bright and strong, others dim and frayed. I could sense emotions with clarity that went beyond the mate bond. Fear from some nobles, loyalty from Caliph's inner circle, love from Lyric. She's becoming a seer, Milena breathed, able to perceive emotional bonds, future possibilities, the truth beneath lies. Goddess above, you're incredible. The light slowly faded, leaving me gasping and disoriented. Caliph caught me before I could collapse, his arms banding around me with careful strength. I've got you, he murmured. I've got you. I couldn't find words. Magnificent, Caliph finished for me. You're magnificent, Seren, and you're just beginning to understand your true power. Through the bond, I felt his pride and awe and fierce possessive love all tangled together. Can we go? I asked weakly. I need to process this somewhere private. Of course. Caliph swept me into his arms and carried me from the throne room, leaving his inner circle to dismiss the assembly. Back in our chambers, he laid me on the bed and settled beside me, his hand tracing soothing patterns on my arm. How do you feel? He asked. Overwhelmed, powerful, terrified. I turned to meet his earth-tone eyes. I could see everything. Caliph, every connection, every emotion. It was beautiful and horrible all at once. You'll learn to control it, he assured me. Milena can teach you to shield, to filter what you perceive. But Seren? His hand cupped my face tenderly. This power awakened because you chose mercy over vengeance, because you're strong enough to be gentle. That matters. I wanted to kill her, I admitted quietly. When I realized she'd tried to poison me, I wanted her dead. But you didn't let rage control you. That's the difference between strength and cruelty. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone. You're going to be an extraordinary queen, Seren. Everyone in that throne room saw it today. I couldn't have done any of this without you, I said. 9 years ago, I believed I was worthless. You changed that. No, love. Calith's smile was tender. I just helped you remember what you always were. Powerful, compassionate, and absolutely perfect. I pulled him down for a kiss that tasted like promise and forever. I love you, I murmured against his lips. I love you, he responded. My queen, my mate, my salvation. It's a epilogue. Eternal spring. 6 months later, I stood in the palace gardens with Lyric, watching spring flowers bloom in impossible profusion. My power had grown under Milena's tutelage. I could now perceive emotional bonds clearly, sense truth from lies, and occasionally catch glimpses of possible futures. It was overwhelming at first, but Calith had been patient, helping me learn to shield and control the ability. You're glowing again, Lyric observed with a smile. I looked down to find soft, silver light emanating from my hands where they rested on my swollen belly. The baby, I said softly. I can feel them through the bond. They're happy. Calith's child, our child, due in 3 months. A soul vessel heir who would be born into love and protection instead of the cruelty I'd endured for 9 years. Have you thought of names? Lyric asked. Kieran for a boy, I said, after Calith's twin. Lyric for a girl, after you. My sister's eyes filled with tears. Seren? You don't have to. I want to. I took her hand and squeezed. You saved my life as much as I saved yours, by existing, by reminding me I was worth knowing. I want our daughter to carry your name. I'm going to cry, Lyric warned, laughing through tears. Too late, I teased, tears streaming down my own face. Calith appeared from the palace entrance, his earth-tone eyes immediately finding me across the garden. Even after 6 months, his expression when he looked at me still made my breath catch. Pure love and possessive devotion. Your Majesty needs rest, he said, reaching us and immediately pulling me against his side protectively. And our child needs their mother not exhausting herself. I'm fine, I protested, even as I leaned into his warmth. You're 7 months pregnant with an exceptionally powerful child, and you just spent 3 hours in council meetings. You're not fine, you're tired. His hand splayed protectively over my belly. Come, rest. The gardens will still be here tomorrow. I looked at Lyric, who was smiling at our interaction with undisguised affection. He's extremely bossy when I'm pregnant, I stage whispered. He's extremely bossy always, Calith corrected without shame. I'm an alpha king. It's literally my defining trait. Among other things, I murmured suggestively, making him growl low in his throat. Lyric, please excuse us, Calith said, his eyes darkening with hunger despite my pregnant state. My mate needs rest. That's not the word you're thinking, I accused, laughing. Out, he commanded, pointing Lyric toward the palace with mock severity. My sister fled, still laughing. The moment she was gone, Calith kissed me, deep and thorough and possessive. "I love you," he murmured against my lips. "Every single day, I love you more." I didn't know that was possible. "I love you too." My hand found his, lacing our fingers together. "Thank you for saving me, for seeing me when I was invisible." "Thank you for bringing me back to life," he countered. "For being my eternal spring after 200 years of winter." We stood in the gardens as the sun set, wrapped in each other, the mate bond humming contentedly between us. I thought about the girl I'd been, invisible and broken, believing she was worthless. I thought about the woman I'd become, powerful and loved, queen to the Northern Territories. The journey between those two versions of myself had been painful and beautiful and absolutely worth it, because I'd found my mate, my home, my purpose, and most importantly, I'd found myself. "Come on, love," Caliph said, sweeping me into his arms, despite my protests about being too heavy. "Let's go home." "We are home," I corrected, my hand resting over his heart. His smile was radiant and beautiful. No trace of the frozen emptiness that had lived in his eyes when we first met. "Yes," he agreed, "we are." And we walked into the palace together, two soul vessels who'd found each other across impossible odds, whose love had thawed centuries of ice, who'd built something beautiful from pain and sacrifice. I smelled like eternal spring, and he smelled like home. Forever. The end. If you loved Seren and Calith's story of rejection to redemption, smash that like button and subscribe for more emotionally intense paranormal romance. Drop a comment telling me, would you have shown mercy to Cassia or demanded justice? Let's discuss in the comments below. Part 2 drops Sunday. We're diving into the royal twins' birth and a deadly threat that targets their soul vessel powers. You do not want to miss this. Turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Share this with anyone who's ever felt invisible or unworthy. Remind them they're just waiting for the right person to see their truth.